Are you ready to unleash your full potential and become unstoppable in your success and leadership?
Welcome to the Unleashed and Unstoppable podcast, where we provide powerful insights and strategies for coaches, corporate leaders, and entrepreneurs. I'm Lianne Carter.
And I'm Carol Register, and we're certified master neurocoaches who are passionate about helping you overcome your limiting beliefs and optimize your performance.
Each week, we'll be sharing actionable tips and strategies using neuroscience, from interviews with industry experts to solo episodes to help you lead a life of power, purpose, and possibility on your own terms.
Join our community of like-minded individuals. Hit subscribe now, and let's be unleashed and unstoppable together.
Hey, leader. Welcome back to another episode of the Unleashed Unstoppable podcast. Carol and I are so excited and honored to have with us today Christina Jandali. Now, Christina is someone very dear to both Carol and I. She is our business coach and strategist and has become a great friend of ours along the way. And Christina, when I think of her and my personal journey and just everything that she's mentored and taught us, it's been around one particular theme, which is so powerful when we think of leadership. And that is relationships. Christina taught me this thing very early on in my entrepreneur journey, that connection is currency, and really leaned into the importance of connection, the importance of relationships, and the importance of being able to be present and connect with the people that you're with. I had an honor to have lunch with Christina several years ago, and it really put an imprint on me because I saw it in action. I just sat there in awe and just got to get to know Christina and just how well she knew the restaurant owners and the history of the restaurant. And it just really, I got to see in practice everything that she preaches. And so it was really a beautiful moment experience. So Christina, I do want to thank you for that. And we speak about our different journeys in leadership, relationships really is at the heart of it. And so I'm really excited to have Christina here to really unpack and share with our amazing audience, that power of relationships, the things that she's learned along the way, and just empowering you, listener, to really look at your relationships and how you can take some of the insight that Christina is going to share with us today and just really put that in all areas of your lives to be the unleashed unstoppable leader that you are. So welcome, Christina.
Hey, thanks for having me, ladies.
So do you want to start off by giving us a bit of your journey, your background, and just introduce yourself to our audience?
Yeah, sure. So Christina Jandali, I live in Canada also. Live in Vancouver, and I started my business 8 years ago now. It's hard to believe how time flies.
Wow.
While on extended maternity leave with my son. And I went from ground zero to building out a 7-figure company in 5 years, and have had the privilege and the honor to have helped thousands of entrepreneurs across the globe in more than 50 countries, helping them start, grow, and scale their online coaching course expert business online. And it's interesting because we're talking about relationships here. And I spent many years working in finance in the financial markets, and I was investing wealthy people's money. So I got to play with people's money, got to invest in the stock market, bond market, mutual funds. And one of the things that one of the mentors that I had in that space one time, I remember sitting down with her and having a conversation with her about what she thought was the biggest key for success. And her name was Bev. We were sitting out for lunch, and I just asked her if she was close to retirement. And I'm like, I just wanted to be a sponge. I want to take it all in. And I remember her telling me it was about relationships, that hands down, everything about business comes down to relationships. And when I started my business, I think I lost sight of that for a while because you want to help people, you want to make a difference. But then you're looking at building your email list and how many calls are you booking and how many people are you talking to? And somehow it kind of turned into a bit of a numbers game that I seem to forever be losing. Then I had one of those hard moments of really taking a look at the lack of results I was creating in comparison to what I knew what could be possible for me to create. And I remember just really landing on me that I felt like I'd lost touch with that component of it, with relationships. And the moment I chose to come back to that and really focus on that, things started to feel a lot easier. It was a lot more fun. I went from, struggling to hit my, having a $10,000 month. I really wanted to have it and just fell short and fell short and fell short. by sometimes a lot too, just to put it in perspective, right? Not just like right under the cusp. And then really the month that I started focusing on connection and relationships, and I used my Facebook group as a tool to be able to do that. I'm having a $30,000 month. And I'm just being totally blown away. And it's everything, I love is that we're having this conversation about relationships and about leadership. And hands down, it's like your ability to connect with other people, to serve other people, to build those relationships, is the value of it, like is in relation to the value that you're going to receive monetarily from your business. So that's in a nutshell.
I know that you impacted me in that way because I had been so hidden from trauma, and purposely hidden because it felt safe, and was really being pushed out of my comfort zone in so many different ways, going into an online world and online business. And there you were present, every day, sometimes multiple times a day, coming across with your emails in the Facebook group, and you were on video and you were talking to me and you were telling me something. And it was, I knew that there was something really special there. And I met you through, Dr. Shannon, in the neurocoaching side, as she was doing a panel in 2020. And the moment that I saw you on that panel, there were several people and they were all so incredible, but you stood out. And I went, wow, there's something really special here. And it was your energy and your heart that was coming across for me that really impacted. So your words are hitting the spot. You walk the talk, and you're having an impact even when you don't realize you're having an impact, and planting seeds even when you don't realize that you're planting seeds. And so I just thank you for that, and love that you're leaning into it, right?
So Christina,
I'm blushing. You might not be able to see right now, but I'm blushing.
How do you do it? Like, I'm curious to unpack, in terms of your, like, uncovering in your mind, like the process that you go, because I know for so many leaders and business owners and entrepreneurs, and as you identify yourself, like it's easy to get caught up in the KPIs and the numbers and the goals and all of those things. And I know even in corporate, for me, that's what happened. It was like looking at the results, and it's very easy to get lost in the results and lose sight of that relationship. So I love to kind of unpack or uncover for you, Christina, like, what is your thought process or approach to always be mindful of relationships first, so that you're focused on that and have that intention, and obviously not lose sight of the other things, but that, I guess it's leading with relationships first, I guess is what's coming to me, and how you go about doing that.
So that's a great question. And I think when you take a look at that is like, where do you go from leading with relationships first? And I think the first thing is I'm an introvert by nature. Like I really like to spend some time by myself. I'm not the person that's going to be like the life of the party, screaming at the top of my lungs. And they're like, that's not who I am. And I'm not really a big person on small talk. I'm the person like that. You stick me in a room with a bunch of people, especially when I was younger, I was very shy, didn't want to be the person that would, speak up, but I would gravitate to people and I'd learn about them. And I always felt like I never knew what I had to say, especially in all the years I was working in corporate. I was surrounded by all these wealthy people. And I'm like, I had like a few pennies to rub together. When I first got started in the business, it took me a while before I created my own wealth. And so I think it almost started from a place of feeling like I didn't think I had the value to add to the conversation. Mm-hmm. So how can I be curious to learn about them? How can I be a sponge? How can I take it all in? So I think that's when the journey started, and developing that skill was in corporate. I was like, well, I don't know what to say. So I'm just going to listen and I'll just ask questions. And I realized people just love to really talk about themselves a lot. So just be interested. Right? Just be interested in them. And it's amazing, like how you learn so much about people and you create that space. And I remember, in that corporate world, people always say, how come everyone shares everything with you? Like everything about everybody. And they're like, it's just because I just asked, but it was because because it wasn't like I was the person that was front and center. And it's interesting too, because then I have to break down those walls and barriers as you grow an online business, and you are front and center, and you are the brand, and all that. So I actually think it came from insecurity and not having answers, and then developing the skill to be able to do that, and then realizing people are really fascinating and they're really interesting. And one of the things I always look at is like, be a sponge, like just be a sponge for feedback, be a sponge, take everything and like show up like you're the dumbest person in the room. And the more that you're able to see where you have something to learn from someone, like just because you might be further ahead than someone in one area of your life doesn't mean you can't gain or learn from that person. So that's number one about relationships. I think that it was cultivated from a place of lack. Actually, it's probably not what you're looking to hear, but came almost from a place of lack to begin with. But the second thing is like relationships first is one of the things I always looked at in my business was I know that calls are going to be the things that are going to create revenue, right? If I'm having an enrollment conversation with someone, consult with someone, that's how I'm going to make money, right? Especially early on. Now I sell more, through leverage means as well, and I have a sales team and all that. But so I'm like, I knew conversations was going to create enrollment or create buyers, create sales. So I always said, if I didn't have calls on my schedule, my only job is to fill my calendar and talk to humans. And if I don't have humans to talk to, then I better go generate a relationship with someone. That means that it gives me an opportunity to talk to a human. And if no one wants to talk to me, then I haven't added enough value to anybody to warrant a response. And so I just became obsessed with, okay, if I don't have those calls on my schedule, what am I going to do to create them? How am I creating value? And instead of beating myself up of thinking if I put something out and people don't respond, or do a live and no one shows up, or did a, teleclass back in the day, right? Before there was like live streams, teleclass, nobody would show up. Instead of just sitting and self beat up around it, it was just like, okay, well, let's try another one. Okay, let's try another one. Okay, let's try a different way. Let's try a different way. And just came from a place of curiosity. So I think like that focused on relationships first. And then the third thing I think that comes from it as well is not being attached to who the expectation of a relationship, meaning I'm not reaching out to someone because they have to be like a potential client. I'm reaching out to someone to learn about where they might fit in my life and how I could potentially bring value to that person. And are they a potential collaborator? Are they a potential client? Do I not know where they would fit, but I can help them in some way, maybe a book recommendation or something. And so like always looking for the perspective, like, how can I just make a difference for one person today and just start small, and then not finishing my day until feeling like I've made some sort of difference, no matter how small it is for someone. And then I think you just get into the rhythm of connection and it starts to feel more natural.
I was going to say, I remember when Christina and I first met like on Zoom, she noticed that I had I think it was like the banners or something from running. And I remember her asking like, oh, do you run? And it started off that conversation. And so just that awareness, like really, I'll never forget that, because it just was like the connection was first, and just your caringness. And so, that curiosity is huge. And even though I know you coached me in entrepreneur space, there's so much of what you shared that I thought, man, I really wish I had that with me back in corporate, right? Because really as a leader, if you're C-suite, you're leading a team, that relationship piece goes such a long way with enrollment and getting people on your team and moving your vision forward. And I think that just even in a family, right? And so, just what you're sharing really lands, and it's just so beautiful to, I guess, even take a step back to kind of hear your perspective, Christina, like underneath like the layers of, again, and we see you do it. And now this is the approach that you've taken. So
I feel like when I stepped into your program and I saw the resources that you made available, your generosity, the value you brought was overwhelming. And I went, well, no wonder she's making a great living and doing this. But it went so much deeper, even beyond just your generosity. It was the one thing that really stood out to me was over and over, I heard from you again, if there was any kind of breakdown or self-doubt or in the groups of people that you were coaching, what does it mean about you? and you would take us through a series of questions all the way to all my worst fears have been met. Every one of them, everything is broken down. Everything is fallen apart. Well, what does that mean? What does that mean about you? And always bringing it back to our worthiness, our deservedness, which we talk here about all the time. And so I want to ask you in that, because I have seen your generosity and you're bringing it back to the root of things. And have you ever felt like I'm giving too much? I don't have anything left to give. Like, have you ever felt broken down in your leadership in that way, or where you felt like you didn't have the support around you that you needed?
So when you say anything left to give, like energetically or intellectually?
Actually, it's a great question, but both. I mean, just like where you're feeling maybe stretched, you're in the discomfort zone, and some people go too far and go to burnout. We talk a lot about that here. But knowing that you are a leader and that you do walk in leadership, like, how do you cope? Have you ever felt stretched to the point where I can't give anymore? Or like, how have you dealt with that?
Yeah. So I'd love to talk about from the intellectual perspective, because I think early on in my business, I was worried if I gave everything away for free, no one would want to buy from me, or that if I let my secrets out, then there would be nothing left. And I think that feeling is like, it definitely sources from a place of lack, because I always just felt like there's just like, we never stop learning. We never stop growing. I mean, we're either growing or we're dying. So to me, the perspective is always like, there's always a next evolution. I've been teaching many of the same concepts for the last 8 years, 6, 7, 8 years. And the way I teach it now is different than the way I teach it then, even though conceptually it's the same. So I think our lens of the world, our view of the world always adapts and changes. So I don't have that anymore of like, oh, there's nothing left from that perspective. But when it comes to energetically speaking, I think what we earn and what we get paid for income through the business, especially when you're in a transformational space business where you're the brand, right? When it's a personal brand business, very much has to do with who you're being. I don't think it's as much the case when you're behind, like we run, investment portfolios and businesses and stuff like that. And that's a step removed. It doesn't like, it's a different bucket. Your personal brand is a very personal bucket, and you are faced to look at yourself through every next level of growth. So your income very much grows alongside or gets capped alongside your capacity to handle. And so early on in my business, thinking like my very first group program, thinking, oh my gosh, I don't think I could handle more than 10 people. Like, oh my gosh, how would I handle like 10 people like all at once and really have to help them every step? Like that's going to be a challenge, like 10 people. And so that felt like a stretch, and that felt like a challenge. And, we've had hundreds of people in a program and served them at the same time now. And that, and so as we grow, our capacity grows. So 100%. I remember early on when I was launching a program, I just felt like depleted, exhausted. I wanted to hide under the blanket, not talk to anybody for a while. Like I literally would not, you just need that space. And even when I was in corporate, I'd come home from the end of the day and I'd be on the phone all the day talking to clients. And then I get home and I would never answer. If anyone called the house, I would God forbid, I would never answer the phone. Like I do not want to talk to a human. People would text me and friends would text me like, no. I'm like, I'm not available. I just need to my space. I need to recoup. I need to recover. And then, so as the business starts, like we go through the launch and I'm like depleted, exhausted, like, oh my gosh, I'm flatlining, like peel me up off of the floor. I can't bring myself to do this again. It would take me like a few months to like get back up to go do it again, but I'd do it again. And it was interesting because as I've taken on more, the less it drains. the more capacity you have to handle it. And I think what causes the drain actually isn't in the doingness of the stuff, but it's in the mental game that goes with it. And the thoughts like, what's it going to take? What if no one buys this? What if this doesn't work? What are people going to think?
Yeah.
And you're going through all of this thinking and the spinning and this turmoil. And that's the piece that is like draining and exhausting. And so as you grow, those voices don't have the power over you that they once had. Doesn't mean they're not there. Doesn't mean I don't have one of those moments where it's like, but sometimes it's just like that fleeting thought that passes. So, but I think that it's really important that, your number one job as a CEO is to manage your energy. And that means like you get to know what you need and what's important to you. Just like today, before we recorded this, I'm like, hey, ladies, are we doing video? Because I went for a run. I've got no makeup on. My hair is up.
You're gorgeous.
Like if we're doing video, I might just need a few minutes to go get changed and look presentable for using this for public. However, I don't care if you guys see me, I'm sharing with you, but because I'm not going to sacrifice the fact that I need to go move my body and that's going to refuel me and that's going to get me grounded and that's going to get me centered. And I can still meet my commitments and my obligations, but I'm not going to sacrifice my energy to do more doing. And I think that's where people get stuck.
Yeah. I think Alex and I were just talking about putting the oxygen mask on first. And I know, like, I think of you, Alex, as, the world's like miracle woman because of everything that she does, leading leaders, coaching coaches, teaching university, handling her beautiful babies, and, being a wife and working with your husband as well. And but, you're exactly right. Like what happens in our journey it's true. And I even forget that. I have to be honest. I forget, oh yeah, my capacity has expanded. And so, my beautiful brain wants to take me back into experience or into the past. And you can't do that. Don't you remember that this happened and you weren't able to do this and you dropped this ball? And like, we're okay. We're moving.
Well, it's the new level, new devil kind of piece, right? Like, as you're up leveling your leadership, you're up leveling what you're doing. And we talked about this on our podcast a few weeks ago, right, Carol, in terms of like that next identity and how you get to think with the actions and decisions you make. And so, appreciate, Christina, you sharing like your journey and your process. And that's really, that's often what we lean into with the neuroscience of what we're creating and how we're showing up. And it's, setting ourselves up for success and prioritizing what is important to us. And, sure, the capacity that I have to create what I'm creating is come from having mentors like Christina, who's shown and shared and explained, like, this is how we create it. Something else I wanted to lean into too, Christina, is you're so authentic. Like, this is something that I know, like, again, they're like, Christina, I know has taught Carol and I so much, but there's certain things that when I think of Christina, and authenticity is another word. And when I think of the irresistible bold leader, like the L is loving yourself and being loving and being authentic and being vulnerable. And that is something that you have demonstrated so like easily, like you make it look really easy to be your true self. And I'm curious to know, again, talking about the mental game, right? How, the things that you've experienced and how to overcome that so that you really do show up as your true authentic self in your leadership and how you be as a CEO of your business.
This is such a great conversation. In fact, I was having a conversation with my daughter recently, and I was just observing that when she was with her friend group, one of them would ask a question like, who wants this? And my daughter would wait for the other people to answer before she answered what her response was. And I noticed her do this a few times. And I remember being that kid too, right? Wanting to fit in, wanting to be liked, all of that, and observing that with her. And I remember having a conversation with her, talking about that, like, what about what she wants and what would that look like? And just having an open dialogue that she was wanting what to think of her differently or, and having that conversation. And I think that, we spend so much time, like trying to look the part, trying to meet expectations of what we think is going to get us the attention, the love, the recognition, the money, the whatever, because we've been rewarded in our lives from childhood all the way up through our work days to, all the way throughout. There's been reward for that. And so it's ingrained in us as to how we show up. And so early on in my business, I was such a perfectionist, want everything to look perfect. I'd spend tons of time working with fonts and editing stuff to get it just right. Like the hours that I would waste on stupid stuff that would just not move the needle of the business. However, it felt so important to be focused on at the time. But the reality was it was keeping from safe. And so we use all these opportunities to try and control things so that we avoid feeling, the things that we don't want to feel. And so I don't think that it's just happened overnight. I think it's like, as you grow, the less you care about what people think. And there was things that you'd want to hide. And I just started realizing that they have power over you. Like one of the things I dropped out of college, I never even graduated college. I dropped out of college to invest in real estate, which made me millions, by the way. So that was a good decision. However, I felt so insecure about that. And, and I went through a divorce and the stock market crashed and everything went away and I had to rebuild it again. And I was like, I don't want people to know that about me. Then they're not going to, maybe they won't think that I can help them. Or maybe they won't expect me the same way, or maybe this. And every time I shared a secret of, what I didn't want people to know, and it didn't kill me, and they didn't really look at me much differently, I realized so much of that interpretation was just in my head. And as I created my own safety, rather than relying on the safety of other people, of just being able to share it. And so to me, instead, I've always had the perspective of like, whatever you have a fear of, whether it's fear of being found out or fear of anything, physical thing, even like fear of, is like, that's just that's just highlighting for you where you have the opportunity to grow. And, I remember being like, it has power over you, right? I remember being like, I drowned as a kid, like almost drowned. Like I went unconscious, like took in a bunch of water. I was 2-3 years old. My dad scooped me up. I woke up coughing up water. And as you can imagine, I was terrified of water. I failed the first level lesson.
I'm so glad you're still here.
Thank you. I failed the first level lesson in swimming lessons 6 times because I would not put my head under the water. I was terrified. And then I think I was still wearing water wings and like 12 years old, right? The only one, because I just felt really unsafe. And eventually in my 20s, I realized I'm like, really has a hold over me because I never felt comfortable in water. And so like an example of just going like all the way over, of like, rather than sometimes we think like inching forward to overcome something, I'm like, sometimes you just got to go all in to get over it. So instead of like inching forward with it, I decided I was going to sign up for a half Ironman triathlon, which includes a 2-kilometer swim at the beginning. And if I sign up for that, then I'm going to have to figure out my whole issue with water. So that's what I'm going to do. So I think I've just had that perspective. Anytime I see something that has power over me or that I have a lot of resistance to, instead of avoiding it, I've just learned to like really lean into it, and then it just goes away. Like it
committing 100%. Yeah. And speaking of that, when were you first introduced to the leadership that you've always been a leader, and there's a good example. You had courage and you just committed and went all in, signed up for the triathlon. And where did you step into putting yourself in the rooms where you could grow in that leadership?
A good question. I should know the answer to what year it was. I'm thinking it was 2018, maybe the end of 2017. Might have been the end of 2017, beginning of 2018 was when I first stepped into the leadership room, and I had really no idea what I was doing. I just thought that it was going to help me grow my business. Sure, that sounds great. Jumped in, not knowing quite exactly what was going to come of it.
What are some of the lessons that you took away with and that you found has made such an impact as you step into this leadership and be the leader? Like, I know that you are an amazing model of leadership and just the way you live your values, the way you lead your business. But for the listener to walk away with like some foundational pieces for them to really look at how they're showing up and that they can kind of embody those ways of being and thoughts around how they show up as a leader.
Yeah. So there's kind of 3 key areas I think that really landed. Number 1 for me is real, like about being loving just as a person. And like we're humans, it's easy to judge someone. It's easy to judge a book by its cover, make a perception around something, not agree with what someone's doing around something. And just, but we're actually our hardest critics on ourselves. It's like realizing like, how do you have compassion and love for yourself in the breakdowns when things aren't working, when you're at your worst, when you do something you're not proud of, like in those moments, how do you get to access that, that loving space? The second one is trust. And it's, it's interesting because there's people that trust unconditionally, trust everybody until they're proven wrong. There's other people that won't trust anyone until they've earned the right to trust.
Yeah.
And so
so true.
Right. And some people it's like, well, maybe if you've passed this little milestone. So there's everything in between. And I think trusting is like, trusting another individual can feel scary to some people, but also thinking of like trust within yourself. And this has been probably the muscle that I've strengthened the most since becoming an entrepreneur, is not needing to intellectually understand something and just trusting my gut no matter what. If something feels right, if it doesn't, it's just like trusting feeling. And whatever it is. And so even my team always says all the time when something comes out, it's like, just trust your gut. I'm like, I know it doesn't make sense and you want the answer to be different, or you think it should be different, is trusting that.
Yeah.
And then the third piece is being committed. And it's funny because I think the perception of other people in my life always thought of me as someone that is committed, but I was conditionally committed to myself. And when I was comfortable, or I chose to, or once I decided to, or to a certain extent, but there was another
ding, 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 ding.
Yeah.
Is that you listening right now? Is that you? Because wow. Yeah. Would you lean into that? Because it's really powerful, conditionally committed to yourself. And we talk about the fact that our confidence comes from having that integrity with ourselves and taking responsibility. And that's a fear that comes up for me is, because of multiple responsibilities. Oh no, I'm going to drop a ball. And inevitably, then I attract that to myself. And guess what happens? I drop a ball. So I'm creating my reality, right? So conditionally committed. Yeah, I would love to hear more.
Yeah. I found that like, you'd set a goal, like I was talking about early on in my business, I'd set a goal and then I wouldn't achieve it. And then I'd set a goal and then I wouldn't achieve it. And then I just give myself a reset and give myself a reset. But the reality was I was never actually really allowing myself to process through the disappointment and the feelings that would be required in order to achieve it, essentially. And you have to have the willingness to be able to fail or to fall flat on your face and for it not to work, for you to be able to reach it, but to sustain it, And so I just found that I would make decisions. And I was the type of person, if I felt like I could do it, I would say, okay, I could do it. But if I felt like, oh, I don't know, then I'd be like, well, I wouldn't really fully commit. And then I would wonder why I wouldn't get all in results, but I wasn't all in. And it was like kind of dipping my toes over here. And I remember I was hiding behind the safety of like, well, I'm a mom and I'm only working part-time hours when I, for the first several years of my business and this and coming up with all the reasons. But if I fully gave it my all, like I would have, I would have hit the mark. So I was like living in this false belief and this, like, it was, almost in the sense of like kind of numbing out, like, don't feel so bad because you have all these things going on in your life. If you were like, other people that are doing it and you had all of the things working for you, then, then you have it within you to do that versus like, no, like, this is like, I'm going to go after this. I'm going to create this. And I'm going to do this no matter what. And And it's interesting because I think even as the business grows and everybody's business grows, and as you grow and evolve, there's a next level commitment that gets to come from it. And that part's the hard part, to like really go to that level of what it takes to be committed, no matter what, no matter the circumstances, no matter what happens, no matter what gets in the way of really fully seeing it through and recognizing there's an openness sometimes that might take longer than what you expected.
Yeah. And that patience, right? And what are we willing to tolerate? That's where I'm like, I've tolerated a lot of things. And I heard a story the other day about a dog on a porch. It was from one of our fellow neuro coaches, Angela Stillwell. And she's talking about a dog on a porch, and he's whining, and the neighbor comes up and says, "Why is your dog whining? Have you heard this story?" And he's because he's laying on a nail, and he's like, "Why is he laying on a nail and whining?" And he's like, "It doesn't hurt bad enough." It's so true. What do we tolerate, right?
So true.
Thank you for that. That's really powerful, to recognize the capacity that we actually do have in the moment when we're willing to face things and look at them and process, like you said, and then to be able to, step into that next level with the courage that it takes to do so.
And I got to laugh because, Christina, the second point that you said earlier, I actually wrote it on my piece of paper, and I was thinking of like, what are 3 things that like really what I think of Christina? And the second thing was that we're all human, and you said that. And so I just thought that was so funny. I actually wrote that down because I remember, in many of the stories that you shared, like really leaning into the fact that we're all human, and in our journeys, and as we level up and we're entering these rooms, we're having these discussions, and, we're searching for the confidence to go up and speak to people. I remember what you shared is like, it's really easy to put people on a pedestal, and you invited, whoever was listening to you on one of your coaching calls. So like, we're all human. And maybe someone might be at a different stage of their journey than you are, but everyone was once where you were. And that always really like resonated with me. And it helped me really shift how I would, walk up to somebody or approach them, because I'm like, yeah, they're human just like me. We're all human. And just really helped, I think, take away that sort of the pedestal piece, and helped with confidence, but just made that relationship building and that approachness so much more like person to person versus, I'm down here and then they're up there. And so I wanted to thank you for that, because it really made a massive difference for me. And it's funny that I actually wrote that down as like, yeah, we're all human on my paper. So I love that was something that landed for you in your leadership journey. So thank you for that. So as we wrap up here today, Christina, is there any last tidbit of leaning into on your journey in leadership that you want the listener to sort of walk away with? I mean, you shared already so many amazing nuggets that will truly impact the listener today, but any last little messages or anything you'd like to share?
I think the thing that's coming out for me is like, it's not a destination. Like, we have this idea in our mind that like, leadership or personal development or business growth is like, there's this destination. And then when you've arrived, everything is like peachy perfect and wonderful, and there's no problems anymore. And we have this expectation that everything's going to just go away. And I always look at whoever you were being and whatever your experience were as you create that next level of growth is what you're going to experience over there. So if you're operating from a place of scarcity and you happen to create money in your business, but you've been operating from this place that's like tight and scarce and like there's not enough, and you created it from a place of reaction, right? Because sometimes that can actually be a powerful place to create from. Might not stick very well, right? It might go as fast as it came in, but it does give that push and that drive of like movement, like it hurts bad enough for me to do something. So whatever the experience we have when we create that next level of growth, create that income, is what we experience when we have it. Yeah. And so we think that when we get to the destination, we're going to be absent of the feelings, the thoughts, the things that we don't want. But it's like actually having the absence of that as we're building is what creates the absence of it where we're going. But you're going to take your stuff with you. So I think that's like the perspective of looking into is like, whatever I have here, it's coming. So am I taking it with me, or am I going to process through it and leave it? Because that's something that I'm not choosing to bring forward with me into my next chapter.
It's so true. Like, money magnifies who we are. So exactly to your point, if we're not doing the work where we are, we're going to take it with us, right? So thank you for that. And thank you for being here. I know it's meant the world to both Alex and I, and we appreciate you so very much and the impact that you're having not only in our lives, but in the world and in all of the people that you coach and mentor with the programs that you have, and, just your incredible generosity and resources. And it's no wonder that there's a huge value that's brought to that, and that you are well into 7 figures for many years because, that value is there in those relationships. And so we just thank you very much.
I just also wanted to add, like we said before we started recording, Christina, like thanks to being in your coaching program and what you taught us, like that's how Carol and I were able to come together so easily to put this podcast together. The confidence we had, the relationships that we have built, it was thanks to the lessons that you taught us and just your beingness and you being our mentor and showing us the way, and it made things so much easier. So just wanted to thank you and acknowledge you for that. And for the listeners that are interested in learning more from Christina, do you want to share how they can best learn from you?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can feel free to follow me on Facebook at Deliver Your Genius. But I do have a special gift. I know we were talking about like growing and starting a business or running a business. And, so much of when we create income or we're creating money in the business is because we're adding value, right? We're taking our knowledge, we're taking our know-how, and we're adding value in the marketplace, and we're getting paid in exchange for that. And so I've got a great little resource that talks about 17 different ways that you can monetize your knowledge. So different ways that you could package up what you already know, the skills that you already have, and how you could package that to sell it. So we're going to have that as a special gift for you. And you could go to deliveryourgenius.com/bold to pick that up. So deliveryourgenius.com/bold and find the 17 ways to monetize your knowledge, and then come tell me which one you're going to go with.
Oh, amazing. I love that, because really, I mean, everyone has so much knowledge. Like knowledge is so powerful. And I know anyone listening today has some sort of expertise that it's beautiful to know that you can put it out there, make a little bit of passive income, and who knows where it could take you on your journey.
Or active income. Yeah. It's just so exciting. And just to remind you, listeners, we will thank you for being a part of our tribe. Thank you so much for being here. And we love bringing this information to you. And we will have Christina's information in the show notes for you with the links where you can get this free gift and you can connect with her, and her social media links and everything that you need. So we're so glad you're here with us again this week. And we can't wait to see you next week again. We're so excited. And we're just sending you wonderful, beautiful things to step into your highest potential and be absolutely unleashed and unstoppable. So ciao for now. We'll see you next week.
Thanks so much for being here, Christina. Bye, everybody.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Unleashed Unstoppable podcast with your hosts, Alexandra Carter and Carol Register.
If you enjoyed this episode and you'd like to help support the podcast, please share it with others. Post about it on social media, or leave a rating and review, and subscribe.
That's all for this episode, Wildly Ambitious Leaders. See you next week.